Hello and welcome, Town Hall. I am finally back. Zaylin. Puka is with me over here. I say hi, Puka.
Salem,
Hi.
showed up.
I know, I'm here.
Hi.
Gosh. Malice is here. He's still sporting the hood. And then our resident terrorist, Poison Taco.
Who's this Zalen guy and who let him on?
I
And if
think,
I'm a terrorist, where's my $10 million from Justin Trudeau?
you could send him a letter and ask and see where that is. So, cool news that we heard before, as we were getting ready for this, the death of Fortnite. That's
They
charming.
deleted it.
Just boom. Just nuked it. I don't know how many people out here are Fortnite players that play with us, but
Nobody.
you don't got anybody on your crew? No? Taco, you got anybody on yours?
I can tell you no one gives a single flying F about Fortnite.
All right, there you go.
A lot of people that care about Fortnite, but none of them have the patience to play an MMO.
I would also like to set up an olive branch to the lost World of Warcraft fans who have deleted their accounts in the past week. And you're welcome in Arcade as long as it's not on our server because our server's already full.
To say, you are welcome to come play on Win if you can get on, but good luck. It's the most populated server.
I would go to Tyrannos. Tyrannos is probably the better place.
Isn't that also the least populated server?
Yes. That's
No,
why.
it's the-
Tyrannos
no, the
is-
third. No, there's the third server.
Yeah, I think the third server is.
No, that third server locked down before Tyrannos did.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. Come on,
Dex
stay with
Shields
it.
or whatever it's called.
Well, welcome to episode 14, talking about mods, client-side mods that we do in games, and gameplay changes over the years. If we look at WoW, for example, the game itself has changed drastically from when it was first built to where it is now, and some of that change is good, some of it's not so good, some of it follows the mods that were extremely popular, and some doesn't. So I know that modifications within games is a rather polarizing topic. We've got many in our community that are purists and don't believe in mods at all. Curious as to where you guys stand. I'm a modder. I will load my machine down with as many mods as I can possibly get. Call me a cheater. I don't care. But Puka, where do you stand with the whole idea of community mod or client-side mods?
I definitely lean purist. Ultimately, it's one of those things where if the devs realize there's a problem or there's a need, and they actually create the tools, that's fine. But if given a certain amount of time, like they're not doing anything about it, I'm like, yeah, I'll mod. I'm gonna mod in a heartbeat. Um, and really, it just it all depends for me. I would say I think WoW was probably the game I went the deepest in with modding. I think a lot of people can agree on that. As far as a MMO, obviously Skyrim's where everyone went deep. Like that's where you go. That's where you go deep. Try to load 152 mods. You're like, oh god, no!
If you're not modding Skyrim, you're doing it wrong, frankly.
You're doing it very wrong. But as far as MMOs, I mean, WoW's as deep as I've gone, and I don't know. I do like the pure experience, but I don't know. I can see how mods just make things better in so many regards.
Or better.
Frankly, I wish devs were quicker about realizing like, hey, this is clearly better. Let's just make this part of our UI. And WoW's a great example of a company or a game that has done a lot of that. Like I loaded up WoW with the last expansion. I was like, I don't need a single mod. I didn't run a single mod. Everything I needed was built right in. I think once we got to raids, it was the DBM. That was about it. That's the only thing I loaded. That was about everything else was vanilla experience. But obviously, it wasn't like that. You couldn't do that Burning Crusade day. So,
Taco,
but I'm not
mods?
against it. I just wish you didn't have to use them.
Fair enough. Taco, mods? Yay or nay?
I mean, sometimes you get to the point where you kind of have to use them because MMOs are very competitive games, and if there's mods that streamline any kind of process, whether it's crafting or spotting others, it's what people are gonna be using, and ideally, modding should just be like a cosmetic thing if possible, but then again, those should be tools that developers should be giving players rather than players circumventing what's already in the game to mod.
Alice?
Put up my soapbox. All right,
there you go.
y'all
That's right.
cheating fools.
Sit back, boys.
All right, no. So single player game, I will still play through the game completely before I mod it. Then I will totally mod the hell out of it and play it again. But I will always play even a single player game through the pure experience first. When it comes to MMOs, there are certain times when mods become relevant, but overall, unless the company like World of Warcraft is a perfect example. They wanted you to mod. That was literally the purpose. They opened an API. They're like, here you go. Connect with this. And anytime there was a mod that they didn't like, they would go in and go, nope, this aspect of the API is blocked. You can't, we don't want you creating a mod that'll cycle shields and do things like that. We don't want it to read that information because that's actually gameplay affecting as opposed to convenience. And as long as they can be controlled, that's the problem though, is too many it's too big a window. World of Warcraft only pulls it off because they are such a vastly successful game that they have the staff at all times to continue to keep up with it. Most MMOs strip down to bare staff and at the end of the day can't keep up with keeping cheats out of their API. This problem that ArcAge has dealt with is they opened the API for a couple of changes. There's a POV mod, a couple other things out there. And for AAU, they're actually shutting it down because that was also opening the ability to do certain exploits in the game. And they had no way of stopping it, so they had to shut down the API because they just don't have the staff to deal with that. When I played WoW for a long time without a mod. Eventually, you get some of the basics. You get your DPS meter, you get your deadly boss mod, all that type of stuff. But I agree kind of with Poison in the sense of like if it makes your layout different or makes it prettier or does something like that, that's irrelevant stuff. That's personal flavor taste. It's kind of like the difference between do you have loot boxes and cash shop items in your game, and are they making you win the game or are they just giving you costumes? If they're just giving you costumes, no one cares. But if it's
I care.
gameplay, well, but like if it's giving you gameplay effect, it's the same aspect. Is like, well, we don't want to have to force everyone to download it to stay competitive. That seems stupid. At least World of Warcraft did the one thing right, which was go, yep, these tools, these are really successful and very, very popular tools. Let's integrate them into our system. And they moved on and they made them less clunky and made them part of the game. And at least it was a good place for them to learn to develop with their player base, which has its value.
Do you guys think that mods in general help the overall community feel or your guilds within games? Are there mods that change the functionality of the game? Because, we previously stated most mods are okay if they're primarily cosmetic. I know within World of Warcraft, if we're using that as our primary example, there are a number of mods that actually change functionality within the game for the betterment of your guilds and communities. Do you think that should be, shouldn't be? Was it useful? Did it actually help create a better community, or are tools outside of the game still the better way to go?
Give an example of that. Yeah. Give an example.
Okay, like a guild rating calendar, signing up for raids and things like that. You have tons of tools outside of the game. You've got Guilded, which has recently gone to crap. You've got
that really is
Google Calendar.
Those are all
You've got
tools.
Right, outside of the game stuff that totally does the functionality, but yet you've made a mod that creates something within game that they then adopted, granted, but you still had mods before then that were basically altering the way that they had the guild structure set up.
If it builds a community, that's not. I mean, it's not cheating. It doesn't affect combat. It's not making anyone level faster, and it's simply organizational tools. Rock on.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't see an issue with that. I think everyone's biggest issue with mods is mods that kind of skirt that line between automation, where
Healbot.
is it an automation where like it's
My paladin
not-
a perma cleanses.
okay, it's firing the skills, or does it pop a big box up in the middle of your screen like, hey, you need to cleanse this guy? Then you click it and click another button that it pops up for you, which just fires your cleanse automatically instead of you having to know where your cleanse is on your bar and see where that person is and go hunt that color change down.
Right.
Like it's like that messes. Those are the things that frankly just don't need to be in the game. Does it make it easier? Absolutely. That's the whole point. But it's like now you have a competitive edge. And even in PvE, you're competing against others. You're competing against other healers within your guild. And when you have a distinct edge over on them, it's not fair. And those are the type of things that, though, yeah, they're awesome, they're fun, they make the game easier, they defeat the point of the challenge. Like, that's the challenge. The challenge is you being able to look at a screen of 40 different little rectangles and find the one that has the right color you're looking for, click it, then like, oh crap, I'm not in range, know where they are, go find them, or whatever, But creating a mod that does all that for you, that just makes you like just click your mouse and it'll auto fire everything,
It's whack-a-mole.
Sure.
Okay, so if you look at damage meters, that's not necessarily a cosmetic mod, but it doesn't actually change anything, but it can be detrimental to community building. Oh, you aren't pulling the specific numbers that we want. And we had somebody within Discord past week state that if you've got a good guild of people that know the fights and know what's going on, they're going to tell you if you're not pulling the DPS because they're going to know.
That's not true. Not without a damage meter.
Okay.
The point is, like, you can see spells and you can assume, but the damage meter is like, here's the truth. Here's the damage meter is pure information. Now, how your community handles that information is completely up to them. But all a damage meter is information. That's all it is. And so it's not good. Information is not good or bad.
I think that when you're also looking at the scope of, if you're talking about 5 or 10 man content, you can tell what everybody's doing around you. When you're talking 25, 40 man content, you don't know. You can watch the DPS flinging spells, but like you said, and unless you have that data, there's no way to really sort that information out.
I mean, you can assume, but
well, you're right. You can assume, but sometimes what
based off positioning, based off how you see spells, like you can target somebody and watch their one rotation. Right. And look at their positioning, right? But generally, it's much easier to call out a healer than it is to call out a DPS not doing their job.
Right.
And that's as a tank.
Or a tank who can't hold aggro.
Generally, I do that as a tank, like, because my job's I'm just moving around looking at everyone else, So.
You're staring at monster balls for the whole entire fight.
Yeah.
Unless there's actual mechanics. Use a tank, have to do something.
Shift left, all right.
Yeah, you just walk.
Shift right.
Jump, turn around, smack them. Walk, jump, turn around, smack them. Yeah, it's not hard.
Tank's the easiest job in the world.
Hey, Bobo.
All the tank players out there are like, no, fuck you. I'm like, no. I play tank. It's the easiest job in the world. That's the reason why I do it.
So if we look at, and Malice, you might be able to speak more towards this since you've been more on the dev side of things. If you look at some mods that games have actually implemented within into the actual game structure, why, if something like a damage meter, which is one of the most downloaded mods of almost any game, why don't devs put that in their games?
I think generally because people don't want the minutia of their combat so broken down. They don't want you to early on take the game and break it down into simple numbers. They want you to have to pry open the hood eventually down the road at some point to figure out those numbers. And by the time that's all done, then everybody's kind of all right with it. But you don't want to start that way because then people are like literally prying open the hood on like level 10 content and yelling at each other. You know, they don't need that.
Well,
So-
plus I think devs want you to play all aspects of the game, right?
Right.
They want all the classes to be played. They want all the different roles to be played. And they don't want you to feel like, okay, this patch equal gear level, mage is just better. So let's all bring mages on the raid. I think ultimately the problem is people want to do competitive PvE content as soon as they as a guild are able to do it. And when from a min max standpoint, you have these numbers of DPS, you can look at like, hey, this class is bringing 12% more damage overall at a set gear score. Let's just bring more of this class. Problem solved. Like we'll just bring more of this class, and then we don't have to worry about people being able to play what they want. And then we can get in here and do this content earlier instead of waiting on other people to catch up to whatever that gear level is, where they can be competitive at that level of whatever the higher gear or higher outputting damage class is at the time. And that's the problem is people are rushing all this content. You know, everyone wants to be world first. Everyone wants to be all blah, 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 blah. And these numbers are how you do it. You've got to have this information where, you know, it's like, is that really important? I don't know. But the point is like devs love the PR that comes with it. You know, like, of course they do, you know? So there's different ways of playing the same game.
Dark Age of Camelot did as a very interesting way early on when people weren't able to shred the data like they are now. And they actually fed every Tuesday. There was, hey, this is how this is calculated, this one ability, or hey, there's this one thing, and they fed it to you, just slowly drip fed it to you, and you're like, oh, is that how that's calculated? And then eventually you're just like, then you start putting together the big picture. But it took you years of like data collection from the little drip feeds that they would give you, and it kept you interested, and it kept the statistics monkeys in us, you know, happy. It just kept us fed without like, you know, going, oh, we don't
the spreadsheet people like the terrorist.
Yes.
Yeah. And now people will data mine a patch even before it hits a test server, and they'll mine every little bit of detail, and you'll know everything before the patch is even pushed live.
Right. Which is, to me, detrimental to the MMO experience. Arcade account. Sorry.
Arc Age of Camelot.
Just
Wow.
mixing games. My own game now.
Don't you tarnish that name.
Games like Asheron's Call.
Wait. You went from Arcade and Camelot
I know.
to Asheron's Call.
I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that what was said. All right. So Asheron's Call was huge about every month was a content push, but they would never announce what the content was. They would put it in on heralds as hints, and even not everything that was being released. So that content was always discoverable. People would find things that they didn't know existed in the game. And that made the exploration aspect of the game so much more fulfilling. And now with data mining, it really destroys the exploration. It's what scares me about games like Star Citizen. It's like, here's a game that's like, oh, we're gonna have this exploration class. You're gonna take these exploration ships, and oh, there are already 40 dudes there that are like, hi, we wrote a spreadsheet to just data mine all the data of where everything is in the whole entire world already. Yeah, we're already here and mining all the crap. But I just discovered this area. Yeah. Screw off, noob. But it's only one half of our launch.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually why Star Citizen isn't going to have a. So far, they're saying they're not going to have a coordinate system. So there's going to be no way to be like, I'm at X, Y, Z position, and this is where everything's at. You actually have to go out there and find it. And when you find it, that position is actually a piece of data which is stored on your ship, and that data is a tradable commodity like anything in the game.
Oh no,
So-
I get what their intent is. I'm just saying on the back end, everything's got a coordinate because it's an object in a virtual space. Therefore, you can find it exists.
It exists.
Therefore,
Whether you choose to tell me about it or not.
right. It's like I'll give a perfect example. Stealth in a game. Apparently, you're not supposed to be able to see me. That doesn't stop people from running exploits that see through stealth. Because you still exist on the server, you're still there. You just are obfuscated. Great. I'm going to just ask the server, hey, where's this guy located? I mean, so that's my biggest fear of things like that is, yeah, you can obfuscate it, but all you're doing is obfuscating it for the legitimate player, really.
So, question for you guys and for those that are listening / watching: do you prefer MMOs and even single player games that you can mod, or do you prefer games that strictly do not allow the modding and force you to play the content the way that it was built?
I prefer not being able to mod.
Why?
That said, just because I know everyone has the same experience, and that's kind of been locked down. That said, I am completely okay with UI mods. People want to mod their mess, move windows around wherever they want, put a skin on stuff. By all means, mod it up. So long as they have access to the same information I have access to. That's how I prefer MMOs to be played. Regardless, and yes, I understand there are mods that might streamline things, make things better. It doesn't matter. For me, in a competitive MMO, these are the MMOs I like. I want to know that everyone's on the same playing field. I've got to know that. Like that's the whole point of being competitive. It's like when we compete against each other, we have to know that one person doesn't have a computational edge up over someone else. Like you can have a knowledge edge, you can have a combo edge, whatever you're bringing. But from the standpoint of the application, we got to be running the same EXE. We got to be running the same thing. Footballs have got to weigh the same amount.
Skill, not like because you ran a mod.
Yeah, and that's extremely important for especially being able to be like sportsmen, have great sportsmanship in these games. Like walking away like, yeah, they beat us. And one of your players not being like, well, they're running a blah, 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 blah. If you guys would run that too, like, it's like, okay, all right, calm down. Being able to not have that mess is extremely important to healthy competition. It's what it's built upon, That's why you don't want people taking steroids. This is built upon the same thing. Like everyone's got to be operating with the same ability coming in.
It looks like you've got a couple people in chat that agree with you there, Puka. You've got Ajik and AFK Use Pots.
Yeah, I mean, it is imperative. That's imperative. And that doesn't mean you don't develop a different strategy. But again, the application itself, what you're running, has got to be completely the same. We've got to be using the same equipment. Is essentially what I'm getting down to, right? Because it is a sport like anything else. And so we've got to be using the same regulated equipment. And we can run different plays. We can have different strategies. That's the whole point. But we got to have the same equipment.
Now, would you consider it valuable even in an MMO, I guess, from this point of view? So, like, we'll use ArcAge. ArcAge, you can create a tab. You can put all your data, like how much you got hit for, how much they hit you for, what debuffs, all of that stuff. You could data mine yourself, basically.
Yes.
Would it be beneficial to have a mod or a tool of some sort to actually extract that data out of the game to better compile it?
Absolutely.
Because
that's not giving me a competitive edge in a moment. That's giving me reflection data. And that's what you need. It's the same as a DPS meter. Like you need to be able to know why you lost. That's why, football, people sit down, all they do is watch past games in between practice. You just sit there and you watch what went wrong. It's important in team building, and having that data is amazing. And there's nothing wrong because when you hit the field, when you got to go, that data, obviously you've reflected on that, but everyone's got the same abilities. Everyone's got the same reaction capabilities. And you got to be even in that regard.
So if you're running mods that are kind of giving you that edge when it comes to the PvE content, are you forcing people within your progression groups, and let's just, for the sake of argument, stick with the idea of a progression group, are you forcing everybody within that group to have the same mods, or are you letting people still play the way that they want to play, even though you've just said that that data that you get from it is vital and makes you the better player overall?
We have always stuck with the play how you want, when you want, why you want, whatever, doesn't matter. Like, you listen, I'm not your mama. You play how you want to play. But
We're thankful for that.
here's the best thing you can do. Like, here is statistically the best. You don't have to do it. You can play how you want. But here's the best. If you want to know what the best rotation, whatever, here's what it is. You don't have to use it, but statistically it's the best. That's how we've always done. And then player interactions iron that mess out.
But
am I going to make fun of you for not bringing the best rotation when you knew what the best rotation was? Absolutely, I'm going to make fun of you. You better believe it. Be like, well, somebody. I'll be like, well, somebody would do X rotation. We wouldn't be in this situation. I'm going to say it, and you're going to deal with it. You'll be like, whatever, Puka.
Where did you get that rotation from?
From extrapolating data.
You extrapolated the data?
Sure, or someone did. That's the point. This is all hypothetical, right?
Well, is it hypothetical? Because I mean, like, at the end of the day, like 98% of all players in the game, I would even say potentially higher than that, only know what the best rotation is for a hunter or any of that stuff because it's posted somewhere that everyone reads, and that came from some guy running a mod extrapolating data.
And I remember in like Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, you'd have big YouTubers like Level Cap, and he'd take like all the stats every patch and be like, here's the best guns, and this one, this gun is the best to use. But what's hilarious is we learned basically do the opposite of what Level Cap says, because he basically take like the worst gun and says it's the best, when really that's just not the case.
Yeah, I think we've established, though, that things like DPS meters, everyone's okay with. It's just information, right? I think we established, though, we prefer the information not be available in the first place. The fact is, if you want to be competitive, then you've got to look at the numbers, right? Like, again, if you reference it to sports, that's like not watching your enemy team play before you go out and play them. Like, why would you not watch them play? Like, you need to know what they're going to be doing. You've got to be, if you want to be competitive, that's what you got to do. And so it's the same thing. You've got to know what is the best rotation in existence. Again, for us and for our guild, that doesn't mean you're required to do it. But it's important that we know. If the information's available, I want to have the same information my opponent has. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to use it. Heck, I may know that they're going to use it, and so I'll just figure out, okay, if this is their exact rotation, this is what the meta rotation is. How the crap do we counter it? That's what all we did in Guild Wars 2. We just looked at the meta and figured out how to counter it. Like, I don't want to do the meta. That's dumb. Everyone's doing the meta. Why we fight meta on meta? Let's just build a counter to the meta. Problem solved. That's fun. It's like that's all we did.
Ajic and AFK, I have to say one thing, which is that players be players. Some of them are jerks and will use DPS meters to vilify, shun, and do whatever because that's what they do. Other people will use that data to improve their team and expand their guild. That wanders down a path of many arguments on many things in the world of is the
community thing.
Is the tool the problem or is it the person?
So I guess there's a question that we can pose off that. Is it the responsibility of the developer to ensure the community interaction is the best that it can be? And if something is entering their game that is hindering their community and thus hindering the game, is it their responsibility to remove or block said thing? Or do they just let D-bags be D-bags and everybody has to put on their big boy pants and play the game?
No, information in and of itself is it's pure. It has no bias. It has no anger tied to it or whatever. People are the problem. And listen, if you find yourself surrounded by people that hate on you because you don't want to do whatever, you'd rather have fun than do the best rotation, then you're just hanging around the wrong people, because there are plenty of people out there that do not care about the best rotation. You're looking at probably some of them on the screen right here. Care about you having fun. That's what's most important. That doesn't devalue the information. That's the point I'm trying to make. Like, I want to know what's best, but I will never require it of anybody. That's what's extremely important, is there's nothing wrong with knowing what is the best rotation. Information in and of itself has no bias. It's just information. But people will use that against you. And those are just crappy people, and maybe you don't want to hang around them, and that's okay.
You see, the best way to solve this is just to have cookie cutter builds on hand for people that join your guild, and then they join your guild and be like, this is your build.
Absolutely.
Here you go. Standard issue.
Is actually just recently, just before this stream, actually had this situation occur. Something that I do the exact opposite, which is I refuse to tell people how to play. I will give you all of the information to make the decision that you want. You tell me what you want to play. I will give you how the stats in the game work, how the builds function, and then go, okay, especially we'll use ArcAge because it's one of the most complex systems. There's 220 classes. About 60 of them maybe are viable. The rest are all garbage. But that's all based on
garbage.
Hot garbage, yeah. But that all comes from the fact of understanding how the attributes work,
Malice,
how all those things play out, and how they interact. But you don't need to tell them, you need to play a blah. You have to go, hey, here is some examples of how these things work together and how these things don't work together, how these abilities work, and then make your decision. And then when you make hot garbage, I make fun of you, and that's fine. I'm going to do that. But
so Malice, I have a question. If I am in ArcAge, if I make a Battle Rage Archer Sorcerer, will that work?
No.
Why not?
I bet you. Lack of understanding of how the stats work in that game.
But
I'm going to somewhat disagree with you, Malice, and tell you what we did like in Guild Wars 2, right? Because we have people of all different skill levels coming to play with us in Guild Wars 2, and here in competitive WW. And here's what we told them: like, all right, here's our link to our builds. Okay, we got two different builds. We got a poor man's build. It can be made for 10 gold, right? Anyone can make this build. And then we have a min max. This is the best in slot in this build. We told them, like, if you're going to bring this class, this is what we do with this particular class. This is the role it plays. We had multiple roles for different classes, and we made a build with it. Like, this is what we utilize. And then we'd say, you are by no means required to adhere to any of this. This is just what we do. And if you are going to do this, I would like to know, because I'm going to put you in a group that your role will synergize. And if you're not, I'd also like to roll. I'd like to know, because you can still be in the group. You're just not going to be in a group that requires that synergy to be present. And that's okay. You're still able to come. You can play all you want. That's
I guess
fine.
I always look at it from the idea, though, that you, a person that can make the most informed decision is going to make the best character that's going to synergize because they understand. The problem I've through the freaking almost 20 years of running a guild at this point, that I have learned is when you give somebody, here is a build, they don't know why it works. And because they don't know why it works.
That's why we have training.
Well, right. But when they don't know how it works, they don't understand the fundamentals of it, it doesn't mean anything. If you teach the fundamentals, they will automatically create that good class. They will automatically make your template because you've already done the math and you've explained why the math works. Sometimes they might be experimental beforehand, but they'll go, I understand now statistically why that's a good build or why that's a bad
And where we differ is I'm taking the role of a coach with a team, and I'm telling them, hey, this is what I need you to do. You focus on this. In my opinion, it's pretty complex for you. You figure this out. You get this rolled down, because you got 5 other people in your group they got their job to do. My job is to coordinate all you guys and know that you can all hold your own weight. That's my job. Once you figure out your role, then you can maybe spend some time looking at what other people are doing. Heck, you might not even like your role. You might want to play someone else's role. That's fine. but you're going to train to do your role, and you're going to be proficient with your role. And then you can start learning other people's roles. And that's kind of because we've got to come together as a team. We've got, you can't be responsible for knowing everyone's roles. You eventually will, right? Like after 2 months of play, or once you go to enough class trainings and you go to the other class trainings that aren't your class, you learn, you got a brain, you can learn everybody's role and how it all works together. But that's not your job initially. You're coming in off the street. You don't need to know everybody's role. You don't got to know the whole picture. I'm like, here's the part I need you to play. Right? Like we're an orchestra here. You don't need to know everybody's part. Like you got your sheet music, play your sheet music. My job's to know everybody's part and know how they work together. Your job's to play your sheet music as best as you can. Eventually, when you learn to play other instruments, you can play, here's another sheet, you know? I can use you in multiple places now. But that's not your job initially, right? Like do your best at one thing. If you're like, I don't like this one thing, fine, we'll give you something else, you know? But the point is like, we really want you focused on the one role you want to do. That could be any role, but when you come in and you want to be competitive, like you've got to you got to play your role and you got to play it good. And there's a reason.
Yeah. Trust me, I'm not saying well, just wing it. I'm saying like, okay, most people have an idea of what they want to do when they walk in. Whether they want to be a DPS, whether they want to be a healer, whether they want to be a tank, whether they want to be a support class, whether they want to be a big crowd controller, whatever they want to do, it's that information, though, helps them make the informed decision as opposed to giving them a cookie cutter of that build. Because obviously I'm not saying, oh, I'm going to give you this vagity and you're going to figure it out in a complete sense, but I'm going to say, okay, you want to play a melee. Here are the things to be a better melee.
And I think we're just talking two different games is ultimately what we're coming down to, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, in a game
like Arcade is archetype. You play an archetype.
Comparative.
Correct. Well, there's multiple ways you can play an archetype, right? It's like, listen, if you want to be melee DPS, here's 5 classes that can fit that role. And they'll do it just fine, right?
Right.
And with Guild Wars, hey, correct. Like Guild Wars is like, hey, we got a group of 5 people. This group is going to synergize together. This is the part I need you to play in order to maintain group synergy. And if you can't do that, that's fine. But I got to find someone else who can. And that's kind of where I'm coming from. And that's the difference. Where with Arcade, you got 5 different options to fill a role a lot of times, and that's okay. That's
This isn't exactly exclusive to MMOs. Like I've been on competitive teams before. Granted, it was a really long time ago, and I played competitive Team Fortress 2. But when you go into 6v6 Team Fortress 2, your class composition is medic, demoman, usually 2 soldiers, and usually 2 scouts. And basically nothing really deviates far from that. And basically, do you like playing heavy? Well, sucks to be you. You're not playing competitively. Do you like to play pyro? Sucks to be you. You're not playing competitively. And I did a bit of Highlander, which is a bit somewhere in between like super competitive and just regular play, where it's 9v9 and each team has 1 of each class. But when you get into this, kind of goes into the territory of min-maxing and being like, here's your class, here's your role. And I think part of it is on the communities, because some people can be very draconian in regards to that. Be like, hey, you're supposed to play the game like this. And there's a lot of people out there, if you tell them how to play a video game, they're going to tell you to go take a hike. But at the same time, it's up to developers too to give people lots of options, so that way we don't get pigeonholed with a particular class or a particular role.
Again, I don't think that's a problem. I think what's important is when you join a team, or when you join a team that's formed out of a guild, that your expectations of players be made clear by whoever is the leader of that team. You have got to make your expectations clear and be like, listen, we may require you to play a specific build to be a part of this team. If you have a problem with that, then just don't join the team. Like, that's okay.
I guess since I've never, like, I consider myself competitive and I consider my guild to be competitive, but I don't consider myself competitive in the idea of like what Poison Taco was talking about, like basically like playing for money, you know, like if I was playing tournament play, I'd totally be like, okay, we need this, and this. Who's willing to fill these roles and do them well? If you're not, I don't need you, you know. But, Right. There's the bar. I mean, if we're playing for money, that's a whole different conversation. At the end of the day, though, we're even being competitive in an MMO, I feel we're still there to have fun, and I still want people to experience the game how they're comfortable with.
Hey, hardcore casual, welcome to the team. Virtual high five.
Woo!
Yeah, ultimately it's about fun. Like there's nothing. What's on the line except for your pride?
Right.
If you think you can touch it by me losing in a video game, you got another thing coming. Like that's not how you get to my pride. It's
I
not
also
through
find
video
it.
games.
I also find it much more interesting because I know you guys come from more MMOs. Like you guys have played a lot more MMOs, but I've played a lot more like your Battlefields. I did a lot of Playside too. So that's where I'm coming from more of like the skill-based games rather than straight up MMOs. And once you add,
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's a shooter, so if all shooters are if all characters are basically cookie cutters, everybody that's going to have X rifle and X grenade and whatever, you're playing Halo or whatever like that. All the characters are the same. Nobody has more hit points or anything like that.
yeah. But even then, you still have variations with the equipment that you can bring. But I mean, that is like a whole nother layer, especially in something like PlanetSide, where you can have your infiltration team, you have your tank squads, you got your air teams, and I'm more used to going, hey, here's your role. I need you to bring whatever equipment you need to fill that role. Because in most cases, it's like, I don't have the capacity to make sure you have your quote unquote build set when we got like 120 people in PlanetSide 2.
Right.
So let me ask you guys, looking at gameplay changes, we've been talking a lot about the meta and the cookie cutter builds, and AFK Pots has got a good point. The cookie cutters don't work for everyone, but when we look at that, if you come in, like, say I want to play healer and I'm playing a freaking, we'll use WoW as a example. I'm playing a priest and I'm playing holy, and as the game goes along, Disc becomes the best healer in the game, but I'm a stubborn moron and I just want to keep playing holy and whatnot. If you're in, how do you deal with people that just can't keep up with gameplay changes? Do you think these gameplay changes are good? I mean, obviously that is per game. I know Final Fantasy XIV has made some significant changes to a lot of different classes as well, and you get people who are like, I want to play this. But that's no longer, as Mouse put earlier, viable. It's like playing a destroyer in Arcade.
Here's what you have to bring to your players. As leadership, you have to give them the objective to strive to. You got to be like, listen, here's how much like heals per second we need from you. Okay? I don't care how you do it. This is potentially the best way to do it, but here's what we need from you. Like, there's the bar, meet it. I'm giving you a way and some numbers that I think it can be met. Here's some videos, here's some rotations. If you got something else that you want to try, that's fine, but there's the bar, right? Like, you got to get to the bar. I don't care how you do it, but here's the bar. Like, we need you here if we're going to down this boss. There's the bar. Because if you can't get to this bar, that means the bar for your buddy is up here. I want the bar here for everybody, and then everyone can pull their way. If you can't get it and you're right here, that means your buddy's got to be up here to cover your slack. That's what it comes down to. Like, it's that simple. And so it's like, there's the bar. Just be open with people and tell them where they got to achieve, and be like, you can do it however you want. I don't care, but that's what you got to do. I think it's that simple.
Using the kind of that specific idea that someone that's kind of stubborn to change. There were some major. This was 8 months ago now, a year ago. There were some major changes in our gauge for healers. How they can enhance their healing and how they can do a lot of interesting things. They require cross path interaction. Previously, everybody just fell back on Vitalism and Songcraft. End result is that you still ran into a lot of stubborn players who are still stuck in that. And what I end up doing is I just kind of walked them into the grinder, and we died a lot. And finally, they got frustrated with their own stubbornness, and they're like, okay, so what's changed? What do I need to know? Well, if you want to be able to do this, like we said before, if you need to do these are the changes. This is how to make this better. Oh,
What's
okay.
really eye-opening.
Move on, and they will finally figure it out, or they'll stop playing altogether.
What's really eye-opening is taking somebody that has made those changes or is willing and swapping those two people out. Just changing that one variable and then going in and facing the same challenge and watching that person overcome or outperform the person that's being stubborn. You'll show them right there in 2 seconds about, listen, like, there you go. Like, people are not going to buy into changes until they see it work, you know, because you can do all the math on paper to help people out. But then it's like, they're like, I'm not going to do it until I see it on video and a recording. And you're like, that's fine. Here's the video. Like, that's why it's really important to have people that are dynamic around you, especially in your core, that'll try anything out just to see if it works. Because putting that mess in application and having a video people can reference, like, this is it in practice working. There you go. Like that. I mean, there's no competition. Like, all right, you saw it with your eyeballs.
Puka, to your bar comments, if you're saying the DPS needs to hit a certain bar in order to be, you know, where they need to be and whatnot, if we look at places like ArcAge that have classes, in Malice's words, that are utter garbage and completely useless, do you feel that any DPS class within that game has the ability, as a class, the skill of the player side, to hit that bar? Yes, that player may have to work a heck of a lot harder, but do you think they can still hit the bar?
Do I think there are
archer, swordsman, mage is certainly capable of meeting that bar?
It's called a destroyer, but yeah.
Yeah.
You hush your mouth. Stop. Don't anyone roll archer, sorcery, freaking battle rage.
No.
Unless you want to be called a destroyer. That's what it's called.
No, guys.
Already has done that.
It is the best class in the
Call
game.
you out again, Matt.
No. Listen.
Ajax's going to do it just to show y'all up.
It's the best class in the game, and we're going to be rolling on the East faction. Anyone rolling East with us should play archery, battle rage, and mage.
Poison taco.
Totally support that logic.
Poison taco, everybody.
He's a terrorist. Don't believe him.
Poison. If you're an East player, the master win.
Yeah. Make sure you evenly, when you're leveling your Hiram, you want to have like an even distribution of intelligence, strength, and agility.
Yeah.
Don't go too high on any of them. Just right across the board. That way, all your abilities, you know.
Okay,
you
but
can use them all.
Back to the question, do you feel that there are classes with makeups and builds that the devs have created? If they've created this character to be a healer, they cannot physically. It's impossible for that class to hit that bar. Or DPS. Yeah. I am sole DPS.
Yes, there are some very stupid combinations. That's the beauty of the sandbox freedom. There are some combinations that just make no sense. And that's just the nature of what it is. And you have the freedom to be those combinations and try them out and fail.
All right.
That's okay.
I'll take a couple of steps back on this. So we'll use the most stupid build of the sorcerer, melee, archer, right?
No, that was the best build. Remember, we just went over that.
Yeah.
It's called a destroyer, just so you know.
I don't know what it destroys, but
its ability to play effectively.
Right. So you could argue that as long as they pick one of those three things, whatever it is, whether it be the archery, the melee, or the sorcery, and they just pour all their gear and everything and being good at it. So we'll just say, we'll use archery, for example. I'm an archer. I'm going to make it all dex. I'm going to have a really good bow. I'm going to do all of that stuff. And I'm going to use things out of battle rage and the things out of sorcery to create mobility and to create crowd control. Is it the best choice? No. Could it be functionally viable as an archer build? You could do damage.
But will you hit the same bar that you're requiring everyone else?
Potentially, yeah, if you get lucky.
Okay,
if you get lucky and no one attacks you. So the point is, it's like if I put all my points,
all right,
because archery is archery. Because at the end of the day, Arcade still silos your main path as what matters. And as long as you're spec'd around that main path, you don't try to split up. As soon as you try to make everything viable, you will fail. But if you make one of those
You
paths,
have those these are your starting
viable,
paths he's talking about.
you will be as good generally as any other archer. Like you said, it could affect your ability if you're caught in combat or however, but is raw pure DPS shooting arrows, you're still going to be a raw DPS shooting arrows.
There's only one tree that really matters for your ability to do damage. That's it. There's only one tree. Everything else is bringing tools to that one tree. That's ultimately what you're doing. You know, you have one tree. This is my damage tree, and these other things are augmenting a tool set to make that tree work as good as possible. And that's Arcade in a nutshell. So yeah, you can go battle rage, sorcery, archery, be all strength, and then whatever your battle rage with frozen feet or whatever, and like I don't know. This is getting dumb, but it's
you could do flame wall and hope and not worry about the damage output of it, and it'll scare people, and then you can. I mean, you could try it.
Okay. Theory crafting, yeah.
The point is, like, yeah, you do not have to stick to those what are potentially 5 cookie cutter builds.
I'm gonna show you guys how the real way to play Arcade is with this.
This is East only too, guys. Remember, this is East.
So
yeah, you got to get the
If you have one of these, you'll win.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Spoken like a true Star Citizen player.
This thing has gotten me so many kills. So if I use it in Arcade, if anyone on
this is how we do it here, ladies and gentlemen.
See, everyone's got one apparently.
Guys, I really don't want to stream where everybody's pulling out their joystick.
When you get the throttle, this is what you use for movement. Oh, the GameCube. That's it.
All right, so we've been mainly talking about mods when it comes to PvE, and I think for the most part we've settled on the fact that they're okay as long as we're not changing game functionality in an unfair manner. Would that be a correct assessment?
No, none of us like mods. Mods are garbage.
There you go. Says a modder. Mods in PvP.
Well, I
have
a guilty that
I don't know why they would be separated.
Pure fact that he can't have his mod there.
Well,
so, I don't know.
I tried. There's this one mod you can get. It's called Aimbot, but usually it gets you banned from like everything.
Yeah, I don't know why the decision would be separated at all. Like you're playing a game, and we're playing a game where PvP and PvE are blended environments. You could be doing one, then all of a sudden another one is thrust upon you. At least these are the games I care to talk about.
If you're playing World of Warcraft, the biggest modded game ever, like you really silo them very differently.
Okay, well then let me throw this at you. Let's talk about CU. If we've got a PvP focused game and they allow modding, which I don't think we know yet if they're going to. I doubt they will, but if they allow modding,
there will be UI mod,
and it creates unfair advantages for people, but everybody has access to be able to use that mod, but then you've got people that are purists.
No, then just make it part of the game. Like just develop the mod into the game and make it a checkbox in your menu and whatnot. No, I don't want them to be like, okay, this is a great mod. We approve this mod. We recommend people download this mod. Like, heck no. If you support a mod, put it in the freaking game. Like, design the mod, make it load on everybody's account. Don't allow me to modify, especially in a competitive game. Don't allow me to modify my files so that I'm given any advantage whatsoever. And that's where it's like, keep it with UI and let people UI mod the crap out of whatever they want. And yeah, just leave it at that, And then any UIs that give a distinct advantage, popping up like this thing real big on your screen, just click here. Like,
So
shut it down.
I would I'll first address Ajax's comment and then I'll address yours, Puka. So the problem I have with Ajax's comment is that, yeah, in a perfect world, you're correct.
Could you please restate the comment for those that watch us on YouTube later?
Here, I'll do it. Just make your game good enough to where you don't need all these stupid mods. Make interesting way. He didn't say stupid, by the way. I did. That's an editorial note. Make interesting ways to put.
I didn't know Poison Taco.
Make interesting ways to put things in a DPS meter in the game without getting too crazy. Like, yeah, just add all that into the game.
Right. So the problem is given an infinite amount of time, which currently CU and SC are using an infinite amount of time, and how upset the community over it. So, like,
my kids will be able to take advantage of my
right. So, I mean, you either create a game and put it out, or you continue to build a dream forever. I mean, so. And this is where then it shifts to Puka's comment, which is the one thing World of Warcraft did that, even though I'm anti-mod, I understand this from a development standpoint, is that they said, hey, let the players develop these tools. When they develop them, we'll edit out the ones that are bad, and the ones that are good, they'll be really, really, really popular. The really, really, really popular ones will integrate into our game, and we've literally had free development. We have players who are developing our content, and we know they like them because everyone's using it.
There's a reason Skyrim was Game of the Year, and it wasn't because Bethesda made a great game.
Honestly, look, in the case of something like Skyrim, where you mod it till it breaks, it's fine. That's your choice. That's you going out for the hobby of I bought this game and I'm just going to tinker with it because I can. With an MMO, we kind of like it's a different beast because it's not really something you buy off the shelf.
Of freedom. I mean,
it really an MMO really is a service. And if I'm playing an MMO, I shouldn't have to go to Curse and download this other stupid client and load up all this stuff just to be viable. It's a pain in the ass. I shouldn't have to
re-update it.
I shouldn't have to go through all that crap.
Now that said, and here's what's important. I think it's important that they understand what information they give out through their API. That is what's extremely important, is they have got to lock that down to a point where people can customize their UI to their liking through modding. I think that's important, which is going to happen anyway. I mean, we're still talking modding. The UI is all Chromium. So like it's just HTML5. Like it's CSS. It's going to be customized out to wazoo. So you're going to be able to make your UI whatever you want. But ultimately, when you're determining like your application that's running client side, what it can pull from the server and present to you in different ways, that's where it's on them to lock that down and make it so that people cannot gain the competitive edge by presenting the information that the API is giving to the client, presenting it in a way that gives the player a competitive edge. And the same thing with like blowing a low health person, blowing them up real big on the screen, and all I got to do is click, and it automatically knows what ability to fire, bound to a mouse click. Like that is a competitive edge, and it's important that they lock that mess down. Again, I'm cool with being able to do it.
Wow, so, I mean,
yeah, but it
takes time to get there because you have to realize how the one thing. It's nice to say, well, you need to know what you're releasing to your API. That's great, but it's how someone takes what you thought was all right information and twist it into something crazy.
That's why I lean more restrictive at launch and then baby steps with opening up data. Be very restrictive, lock that down, and then take baby steps of how you open up more information to players.
Oh, and DG, I'm gonna have to say, your comment about your Idris there and your kids being in 4th and 6th grade. Don't worry, I'm gonna be respectful to Star Citizen. They will at least be able to play it while they're in college.
Yeah.
It may fail college.
Back when I played Counter-Strike, there were some really great mods. There was one called There's one that lets you see through walls. That was really helpful.
Awesome mod.
There's ones that would
All
aim.
pictures now are transparent
Shockingly
PNG.
helpful.
There was ones that would automatically aim your gun at other people's heads. Like as soon as you saw them, it was great.
Yeah.
Any a shooter with that. That's why I don't like shooters. About your 10th game into any shooter, you'll run into that one guy running an aim bot, just popping everybody. Runs into a room, everybody's at different heights, and he'll just like bop, 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 and everyone got headshot. You're like,
No, my favorite are the ones where the guys find like the mods that let them spawn people anywhere. So like he'll just like everybody will just spawn in one spot. He's just like boom, 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 dead. Everyone dead.
Boom.
And he's just like, I win, and it's like, great, you won what?
congrats.
I win.
Wait.
All right, everybody. That is our hour for this quick announcement. The MMO grind on Tuesday this week will not happen in respect to those that are playing Arcade Unchained.
I will literally be online bashing my face at AAU.
So everybody, so that everyone sitting in queue won't have to be disturbed.
Why don't you do your show while you're in queue?
There will be a number of people that will be streaming. I think Malice, you said Plague State was going to be streaming Arcade Unchained. Puka, I don't know if anybody from your group is going to be streaming.
I ain't gonna show you nothing.
Taco, anybody from yours?
Y'all can see
Even though it's Arcade, my group is on, at least me personally, I'm on a streaming blackout while I'm at war with the whales and Star Citizen. So I kind of have to keep that on the down low.
Okay.
you got a blackout.
You're in a different game.
I get it.
Shavik will be streaming. What group is Shavik from again? So everybody knows. Crowd Control. Hey, good, cool. Crowd Control is here, even though the almighty Zeb is not. So, all right. Otherwise, we will see you next week. Ajik will be on with us, and we will be talking about how communication within MMOs has changed and how that has changed with your communities as Puka goes cross-eyed.
And don't forget to support a free Hong Kong.
Free Hong Kong.
Please, if you haven't done so yet, hit follow up at the top, and if you've got your band, if you have your free Prime sub, we'd appreciate that too. Otherwise, we'll see you all next Sunday. Thank you for turning out. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.